Okay, this is the critical lap. This is the critical lap. Confirm.
Leave me alone. I know what to do.
Welcome back to the Critical Lap podcast, everybody. It is Miami Grand Prix recap. Today's episode is brought to you by Bit of Honey, the best candy in the world. You guys are joining us mid-debate on the best candy in the world. We're not brought to you by Bit of Honey, but Bit of Honey, if you're listening, we can be brought to you by Bit of Honey. Call us, make a deal.
Welcome back
Daniel,
to the Critical Lap. Welcome back to the Critical Lap, brought to you by Florida Man. Florida Man. If you're listening to this,
brought to you by Florida Man.
We would love to be sponsored by you.
Yeah, I imagine there's a fair amount of Bit of Honey being eaten in Florida, along with Werther's Original and some classics like that, based on the number of New Yorkers I saw go south. Hey, we are here to talk Miami Grand Prix recap, both the Grand Prix and the Sprint. We're excited to join you today. My name is Ruben. I am one of your hosts. I am a somewhat newcomer to the sport, a little bit of an unashamed bandwagoneer fan, hence my epic Ferrari hat last time. And I'm joined right across the screen from me by Daniel. Daniel, how are you?
Man, pretty good. Pretty good. Better now that the weekend is behind us and I've been able to bask in the glow of overtaking and high speed.
Yes. Yeah, just all of it right before lap 18. And basically none of it after that. Hey man, I see your Miami lights behind you, man. I'm digging this. We've both gone flamingos. Yeah.
Flamingo. You got to do flamingos for the South Florida vibe. You got to do something pink or teal in the lights for the South Florida vibe.
Yep.
Welcome back to the Critical Lap, where we talk about all things fashion and interior decorating.
That's right. Listen, we're not here just for race reviews and cars and all that stuff, oils and gears and whatnot. We're here for all things Formula One, fashion advice, the candy you should be eating.
Yep.
Yeah. And it is
if you're an 85-year-old person who likes the air conditioning set to 81 degrees or just live in South Florida and you like Bit of Honey,
you've already gotten your fashion advice and your candy advice.
Shout out to the legendary Chris P, who is a little bit older than us, or me at least. He likes Bit of Honey. Who likes Bit of Honey here? Is it
this guy? Why
are we
right
talking
here.
about?
You're
Bit
looking
of Honey?
at him.
Oh,
hey, for those of you who are only listening, if you're only listening, you're missing out on the full fashion show for today. So make sure you check out our content on YouTube. Go out and check out Instagram. Follow us there. Like us there, and you'll get to see some shorts and content like that. And you can comment not only on our current wardrobe, but you can see my custom-made Ferrari hat from the last episode. And then to that note, if you're liking the Critical Lap podcast, take a moment to like and subscribe, share with a friend, leave us a comment. We absolutely love the comments. Got some good ones over the last couple of weeks. But yeah, excited to jump in. You ready to talk some? Talk Miami?
Before we get to the actual meat on this bone, we do have to make I do have to nod to the lighting setup back here. I discovered recently, just fully organically, we are not brought to you by Philips Hue Lighting, but Philips Hue Lighting has come correct with scenes that are each individually tailored to Formula One races or the Grand Prix weekend. So what you're looking at this behind me is the Miami GP setup from Philips Hue Lights.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely.
This is exclusive behind the scenes footage of how, let's be honest, the number one podcast in the Formula One space is created. And that's with expert technical lighting, courtesy of Philips, specific to Grand Prix. So they have lighting for every Grand Prix?
Every Grand Prix. I mean, I haven't like swiped all the way through all the scenes to see, but it's like from here on out, as far as I can see, as far as the eye can see on the app. Also, I haven't made the connection yet, but all the lighting was shipped in Signify packaging, and I saw Signify as a sponsor of Formula One, so more to come there.
Maybe there's a little partnership there. That reminds me. You remember when they did the Barilla pasta stuff? Back in, was it, where was it, Bahrain?
It was Bahrain, yeah.
And they had...
Pretty sure.
I feel like I'm stirring up a memory you don't want to remember. But when they did that Barilla pasta thing, they had like a whole pasta set up in the paddock and they got going on about it. I saw at the same time somebody posted that Barilla Pasta has a Spotify playlist that you play by pasta type and you cook the pasta and it's supposed to be al dente by the end of it.
Yeah.
I made the mistake of trying to play one, and as you know, I've got some reserve drivers who are underage, and some of the content was not appropriate for family cooking night. But it was great that they had content. Go check it out. Maybe they changed it by now. I don't know. This is insightful stuff. Honestly, I was thinking that lighting setup. Maybe when you post a link to that, and you guys can go out, find your own bulbs, put them in your man cave, whatever you've got to watch Formula One, or your woman cave. And set those up, light it up for the next race.
Your man cave or your she shed.
She shed, is that what it's called?
That's what it's called, a she shed.
See,
isn't it?
You're just displaying my ignorance now. I didn't realize that.
I mean, I guess you're talking to the interior decorating side of the Critical Lap podcast over here.
Well, we knew that already. All right. Wait, listen. Speaking of design and so forth, before we jump into the Grand Prix itself, we already covered some of the liveries and so forth, but I saw a whole bunch of new helmets, especially when they actually started racing, stuff that wasn't covered, I feel like, prior to race weekend. And then once we got in, Norris with the disco ball helmet.
Once I saw Norris's disco ball helmet, I didn't care about any other helmets. In fact, I was really hoping for Norris to come out top of the podium,
right?
Just to be like, well, it must have been the disco ball helmet, and to expect it or to hope to see it in future Grand Prix
in a future night race. We all want to see it with a night race, and somebody just hit that helmet, him coming around a corner.
Yeah,
although
Singapore,
I think there was some fuss over it about whether it was legal if it had reflective nature to it. I think they had to confirm that it was legal. It didn't reflect, obviously a real disco ball would be dazzling if lights were to go off of it or, be problematic. So
Ruben, quick reaction for you here.
Yeah.
Unplanned. If Norris were to receive penalty for disco ball helmet and lose the number of points or lose the championship by a number of points equivalent to this, whatever this penalty got him,
yes, it would
worth
be worth it.
Worth it?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
I knew what you were going to ask it. Yeah, it would be 100% worth it. Somebody would be like, do you think you would have done anything different? And he's like, I would have worn that helmet all season long. If I'm going to lose, I'm going to lose in style. No, I think it was totally worth it. Leclerc brought a sweet Italian blue one with some good stripes, kind of classic. Frankly, I think he just gave into that HB pressure. It's like, whatever, man, I'll wear a blue helmet. He probably found out how much HP was paying Ferrari to paint their car blue and white. And was like, what? How much are they making? I'll wear a helmet that's blue. Put a little HP on the side. Ocon with some graffiti. Russell with sort of a kind of a pinkish. That's all I have to say about that. Albon's helmet looked like an orange, like a literal orange. He had a leaf on the top of it. So that's fun. And Antonelli had a great helmet, kind of matching his jumpsuit, kind of purple and reddish, and that's good. Some good helmets, some good lids, as the kids say these days. All right, so let's jump into it. Big reactions from the weekend. Where do you want to start? You want to start with the sprint race? You want to start with Grand Prix?
We should talk about the sprint race. I mean, a lot of interesting little things happen in the sprint race.
Yeah, where do you want to start? Sprint race itself?
We got to talk about the sprint race. A lot of stuff happened in the sprint race this weekend.
Yeah, it was a big one. We got Lewis back on the podium.
On the podium, but I don't know if you remember my preview statement. And I said it incorrectly. I said black horse instead of dark horse. I don't know if I was just thinking Kentucky Derby. Maybe there's a black horse in the Kentucky Derby. Right. Dark horse this weekend, Kimi Antonelli. He was in true surprising form.
Yeah.
Qualified P1 and SQ, sprint qualifying, SQ3, P1. Yep. Started the race first.
Yep.
Started strong, but
yeah, he got caught out by some of the big boys.
He got caught out, and he wasn't really able to get back, and he then by another big boy. I don't know if you saw this or not. He basically got booped. he was. I mean, it was the absolute worst luck of anybody. He was literally he was doing nothing wrong.
Yeah. And
of all people, Max Verstappen was released from his pit stop as Kimi was coming in to change tires.
And he just lost. Okay, so hold on. We got to take a step back. Antonelli, he's on pole position for sprint. Honestly, he should have bailed out of that turn early. He compromised his line and just couldn't make the turn.
Yeah. So he should have bailed out early, switched back in up underneath,
Fell back. Yep.
Yeah.
Was doing okay still. And then he pulled into the pit lane, was going by Verstappen, who was getting a tire tire change, and Verstappen was released into him, damaged Verstappen's car pretty significantly.
Yep.
And it basically, if I understand right, it messed up. Antonelli just had to do a full drive-through and go back around.
Antonelli basically just couldn't get into where he needed to stop and get tires changed, and was basically lost whatever time it takes to drive straight down the pit lane at that speed limit without stopping for new tires.
I'm still stuck on he got booped. Verstappen booped him. Is that what we're going to call Verstappen's penalties from now on? Just like, well, he'll boop you if you try to cut him off in the corner. Listen, once again, this is just Verstappen's dirty tactics. He's just pulling out, knocking Antonelli out of the race.
Well, to Verstappen's credit, he doesn't have a whole lot of control over that. And I'm sure... Yeah, I mean, I don't think you're supposed to be looking in your mirrors if you're sitting in the pit or sitting in the box.
It's just full of engineers with their tire guns up. No, he was pretty frustrated by it too. I mean, he was immediately on the radio like, "Come on, guys, you just tore up my front wing, messed up his race."
So the dark horse chances that Antonelli had this weekend just totally got. And luckily,
I thought you were right. The whole time I thought Daniel was right with his estimate.
I was excited. But, even Toto came on the radio at the end of the sprint and was like, don't worry about it, Kimmy. He basically said mini race irrelevant, which I don't agree. I mean, you can earn points in the sprint, but it is less relevant for the overall. And unfortunately, Kimmy didn't have a chance to shine, even though I think he full on earned it.
Okay, well, mini race brings up a couple different things. I do want to come back to that a little bit and just talk about the sprint race format in general. It seems like a lot of work for only a handful of points, and it is not as long as a Grand Prix. But I'm surprised you do all that work to get 8 points. But anyway.
1 point can decide a championship, constructors or drivers. So
it's true, but you do have to feel for guys like Hamilton who pull out a win in a sprint race. You're like, congrats, 8 points, back of the line, please. Compared to the other top drivers. But no, listen, Daniel, I thought you were right about I thought you were still right because George Russell came in a relatively close fourth in that sprint race.
Yeah.
And we'll kind of get to Russell here a bit on the race day, but the big news is that Team Red Bull is finally on the board with that sprint race. Tsunoda locked in 3 points. And so now technically we have to stop saying Team Max and say Team Red Bull in terms of their Constructors Championship runnings. But
I agree.
3 points for Tsunoda.
I'll concede that one.
Congratulations to Yuki Tsunoda getting some points on the board for a Red Bull driver not called Verstappen. Good race for him as well. I thought you were right about Mercedes. And Lando once again lucked out in Miami with a very timely safety car.
That's a good point. Yeah.
I mean, I
was basically able to hang on there at the end and with zero contention for a spot. But hey, that's how it goes. Every win is earned.
Yeah. I mean, zero contention. Oscar Piastri finished 600ths of a second. Almost 700ths of a second slower, so he was right on his tail. The other big news, and unfortunately, I think you have to call it big news for this sprint, Hamilton and Ferrari with a strong strategy. Like, they actually performed well in the sprint race, again, with Hamilton. He came in third, so the order was Lando, Norris, Oscar Piastri, and then Lewis Hamilton first, second, third. Hamilton had a strong strategy. They pitted him at the right time, and it worked out for him. And I found myself thinking this might be one of the only times I've seen Ferrari between that and the Chinese sprint. Was it China, right? Where he was...
where he took the top spot. Yeah.
I think those are the only 2 times this season that I've thought that they're on it. They got it right. Look at them go.
In a race that Toto thinks is a mini race and irrelevant, that's where Ferrari gets their strategy right. Good.
How Toto's constantly saying Mercedes does all their talking on the track. Sometimes he does talking off the track. Sometimes. I think mini race is how you refer to it when you almost make the podium and you're like, oh, it was a mini race anyway. Hamilton's like, whatever, man. They count.
Who even cares?
Yeah. Well, it was a good race. Sprint was a lot of fun. I do like the short format with the safety car. It just makes it feel really, really short. I do think they could kind of, if you're going to condense it that short.
I was blown away that there were that many pit stops. I mean, I know it was wet going dry, but I just feel like with how few laps were left for most of the drivers, it was almost like 6 of one, half a dozen of the other to stop and get new rubber, or go from intermediates to slicks or not. Now, granted, I wasn't the one doing the math. I wasn't on the pit wall figuring out how many laps you could gain and that kind of thing. And there are 3 DRS zones, so to me, it just seemed like there just weren't enough laps to even get all the way around for there to be that big of an advantage. But it seemed like the dam was broken with Hamilton's stop, and it ended up paying off for him. So
yeah, I was going to say that in that sense, it was fun. I think if it doesn't rain, if you don't have that, there is no pit stop, and the sprints feel too short to be particularly interesting. And yet we're still kind of trying to watch it. So it's nice when there's a little rain and they actually do pit. I don't know if it would help to make a mandatory pit stop, although with only 18 laps, you're just going to go soft to start and medium to finish. So not a lot of fun with that.
Mm-hmm.
Nice sprint. Qualifying was pretty uneventful in general. I feel like the only thing I was curious about, did you watch qualifying for the Grand Prix itself?
Of course.
All right, I want to talk about that a little bit. Verstappen, I thought it was for certain that he was going to get a penalty for in qualifying round 1. He had a pretty obvious to me impeding penalty. I'm trying to remember who he impeded.
It was down the main straight, right?
Yeah,
he just stayed on the racing line.
Pit. Yep.
Yeah, he just kind of was on the racing line. I want to say.
Seems like it was Alonso. Maybe.
I was about to say Stroll, but I don't. Okay. I'm trying to remember what the car looked like in my head movies, and who was like quoted on the radio after that.
Well, to me, it seemed like it was really obvious. I think there were a couple like that all kind of happened with other drivers as well. But they didn't show those. They just showed Verstappen being obviously in the way on the racing line. And then they said they were investigating, and like no other investigation was necessary. That really surprised me. And I'll look it up really quick because I'm nearly positive that whoever he impeded didn't make it out of SQ1 or Q1. I'm trying to remember. Yeah, sprint qualifying. So I guess this was sprint qualifying SQ1. But
yeah, I don't know. I don't know if the stewards just say, you know what, you're kind of every man for himself out there, unless it requires somebody to kind of like lift and like come out of their fast lap. But going down the straights, I think there's plenty of room to get around, and maybe the racing line isn't super defined. I'm actually not clear on that. I don't know what the detailed rule would dictate there. There must be something to it to where he didn't get a penalty, because the stewards, they like to give max penalties, right? So
they do. There's always debate about that. I mean, we're laughing, and just if you're not watching F1 that regularly and watching all of it, I feel like that can be a joke both ways. That they sometimes don't give him penalties, it seems like he deserves, and then when they give him penalties, it seems like they're overly harsh. But that, I think, goes back to my biggest question as a relative new fan to this. What are the rules? Like, when do we decide we're going to penalize somebody or not? Are we taking a lot of judgment in play? The diehard fans, Daniel, and I'm going to call you a diehard fan, although you don't have to be lumped in with this group. The diehard fans will say there has to be some. The stewards have to have some ability to judge the situation, right? Like we talked about this when there was the first lap antics a couple races ago. Do you judge them a little less harshly on the first lap because of all the bunched up cars and it's a little bit crazier? On the other hand, do you judge Verstappen more harshly because he's a 4-time championship winner, and so he knows what he's doing, right? When he goes in hard on the brakes on the first turn, that's not first lap antics. That's just Verstappen going hard on the brakes. I find myself personally irritated by the lack of consistency and these sort of like the stewards will look at it and think about it type rules. What's your reaction to that as like a longer term fan?
So I like that there is discretion in the interpretation of the rules, because there's so many different like potential outcomes and so many different inputs to get those outcomes that if you try to say like it needs to be black and white and that you need to draw a very defined line between what is penalized and what is not, then I feel like it almost creates an imbalance, because then what are the teams going to do? They're going to train on this like very
black
rigid
and white rule. Yeah,
they're going to train on this very rigid limit, and they're going to say, well, it's super defined, so we can do anything that's on that side of it. We can do, and it doesn't allow for sort of just being like, okay, there's the intent, there's the driver intent, there's the team intent of what they've done, there's the intent of the rule of what what the rule is meant to protect, or what the spirit of the rule is.
Sure,
and I do think there needs to be some discretion there, so that as the sport evolves, as the teams evolve, when you're in the fourth year of regs, you can kind of say, look, guys, the spirit is this, or the spirit is that, or whatever happens at the end of the season when it's a really good championship contention right there at the end, someone is going to make the call one way or the other to do what's best for the sport, or do what's best for
I get that. And I think I buy that in terms of like, I'm trying to think of an example, soccer, or European football, or not European football for everybody but America.
Footy.
Non-American football, soccer. If you're making a charge on the goal and somebody does an illegal tackle, they will effectively call it as a penalty shot, because you were impeded in what the referee deems to be an obvious goal situation,
right?
Or an
a
obvious
point scoring opportunity,
one-on-one point scoring opportunity, and someone just pushed you from behind. So I think I see some opportunity there for some flexibility. It is just very frustrating. And maybe like the algorithms on social media that love to show you content that causes you frustration, maybe that's some of it, is that the FIA is happy for us to leave a little bit frustrated, right? In a little bit of a debate with our co-fans, right? Like, oh, Verstappen was really like, Verstappen was unfair in that. And you're like, no, he wasn't. I love Verstappen,
Well, and that's a really good point, because all frustration wants is resolution, right? And how are you going to get resolution without seeing the next race and what happens and the potential for revenge, of course. I mean, it's maybe you're right. Maybe it's that cliffhanger that leaves you wanting more and ready to see the next episode.
Yeah, I'm open to that. It is frustrating as a newcomer to just be like, seems like there should be a rule. And if you cross that rule, but you're right. I do think you're right that teams would just exploit it. They are exploiting it. Verstappen's big dive down in the corner where he just, if he can get ahead at the apex, he knows technically the rules in his favor. They're starting to clamp down on that, but he's exercising the limits of that rule. And other drivers are too. It's not just Verstappen.
Well, I don't know if you saw, I think it was by the time you were getting into the turn 2 on that big Verstappen lunge early on in the race, and I think we're jumping to GP here. If you watch the replay enough, he's going left at turn 2. Yep, turn 2. And Norris is on the outside. He opens up. He does this little, and then right back to the racing line again. To me, that's where I think I would, as a steward, I would step in and be like, whoa, what was that? What was that? Because unless there was like a squirrel jumping out there and you're like, no, don't hit the squirrel. Right. I don't know why that, maybe he could say like, oh, I was turning too aggressively. I was losing the back end. I had to correct. But it's like,
he booped him.
He booped him. He booped
him off the track.
When Norris is right on your outside, you need to be, or when any other car is right on your outside, you should be aware that opening up that steering wheel is going to,
or
potentially cause a collision, push him off the track, boop him, if you will,
or spook him. All it takes is to open that steering enough where the other driver goes, shoot, you're going to hit me. I'm pulling out of that one.
A spook
and
is
then
just
they
as
go
bad as a
wide
boop,
Yeah, Norris goes from 2nd to 6th in one turn. Yeah. So I think it's fair. I think it's fair overall, although I think, wasn't it Hamilton opening the steering slightly and sending Verstappen off in 2001 at Silverstone? It wasn't that the video evidence that they called attention to as penalizing
that he was
Hamilton?
He was going up the inside, and because in his mind he had enough alongside on the inside, because the rules are different, right? if you're overtaking on the outside, you have to be fully alongside and slightly ahead to claim the corner when you're at the apex. To go
around the outside. Okay.
To go around the outside. So it's harder. So when
apex starts at the striped lines.
No,
sort of, kind of.
Yeah, I think
that's
it's
always a little unclear
defined.
to me, to be honest.
I think it's ill defined. Okay. But when you hear him say they're working for it or working harder for it, going around the outside, the rules literally do make it to your disadvantage. When you're going around the inside, you just have to have your nose at the mirror, right? I think it's I don't think this is actually published. I think this is more just inferred by what has been said publicly.
Another one of those gray rules. Okay.
Yeah. I don't know if any of the rules really are out there in black and white, because I think the rules change, and I think they reserve the right to change them and update them. So we only know what the rules are when they're infringed upon and when there's discussion about them in public.
Sure.
So nonetheless, inside overtaking, more advantage to the overtaker. Outside overtaking, more advantage to the person that's already ahead, the driver that's already ahead. So so I think in Silverstone that year, they were kind of saying, look, maybe it was your corner, maybe it wasn't, but you didn't follow the right line. You opened up too much and you got in his wheel. And the other thing is, I think, what I heard over and over was you don't do that on that turn. And it's just kind of like, hey, everybody knows that that's not the turn where you hang it up the inside because of what could happen, or because what happened. So
yeah.
Well, again, lots of different things, lots of discretion.
Yeah. We're going back to Grand Prix of days gone by. But, all right. Well, the rules are a little loosey goosey. That's all right. Verstappen with a little boop. Let's get to the actual race. I mean, the big headliner of the weekend, not just the sprint race, not the qualifying. Big overview for me. Red Bull lacking some overall pace. Norris got shuffled back real quick, nearly lost his wing. And then the big news was the giant shunt with Ferrari putting Mercedes in the wall. Legos all over the track. And then they had to clean up Legos for hours, as I understand it. So are we talking about the Lego one, or are we talking about the full Grand Prix? Which one did you want to discuss? I wanted to talk about the Lego go-karts.
It sounds like you're talking about what Norris was referencing at the the cool down lap on the back of the semi truck, where he said, I forget what the question was, but he referenced the Lego race.
The Lego race was the best part of the weekend to me. In a weekend of excitement, that Lego, so it was like their driver's parade. It was just them going around and waving at the crowd, but they put drivers in go-karts made of Legos that could go, I think they said 20 kilometers per hour. So if you'll give us a few days, we'll run the calculations on what that is in real numbers. But it's like faster than you can walk, And they managed
we'll
to
give you the numbers in beef and potatoes.
Yeah. Somebody said, like, man, these engineers that worked on these cars and built them over days, I'm sure they're horrified that they're crashing them. I was like, are you kidding me? If I built a car like that and then Lando Norris is like taking the bumper off of George Russell, I'd be pumped.
Yeah.
It's a great race.
So I think from now on, debris on the track, we're just going to call it Legos.
Just Legos, yeah.
They got a lot of Legos on the track.
Yeah. They run over it and they get a puncture in their tire. Like, ooh, we all know that feeling. Late at night, walk across the floor, take a Lego to the foot. Am I right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's get to the real Grand Prix. Lego Grand Prix was easily the best. If you haven't watched that, it's another hot tip for you. Go to YouTube, Google Lego Formula One Miami, and specifically watch the video feeds from the drivers that they filmed on their phones. It's fantastic. Like, they can't stop laughing. It's like watching 5-year-olds in go-karts for the first time. All right. Miami Grand Prix. First place, Piastri. Norris, second place. And our old third wheel standby, George Russell. Welcome back to the podium, George Russell.
Yeah.
Piastri with a solid win. He, again, just impressive the whole race through.
Ice water in his veins.
Yeah.
Dominant, just straight dominant. I mean, Norris had to work for that P2. Piastri, he got it early. He kept it. So it's, good on him. Love seeing some dominance from a young guy like that. love seeing, a drivers championship leader just continue leading the drivers championship, especially one that hasn't won one before. Because to me, this is like, okay, I'm excited that there could be a change this year. It could be someone other than Max Verstappen. I think we got that feeling earlier on anyway. But,
right.
As the Red Bull gets consistently better and consistently more competitive, I'm like, oh no, is it Max this year again?
Is it Max? Yeah.
I'm happy to see any McLaren driver, but especially one that's so new to the grid.
Yeah.
Doing so well. Yeah.
Well, it just with such confidence too. I mean, we've said it 100 times at this point, but Piastri just confident the whole way through. It's tough to fault other drivers. They're all really good. It's tough to fault Lando Norris. I like the guy a lot. He seems like an incredibly talented driver. Piastri, it's hard to find a lot to say about him other than he's calm, collected, and makes very few mistakes. When he was battling with Verstappen, I mean, we should give props where it's due. Verstappen was some solid defense in a car that had no chance of keeping them behind.
Right.
Most of this race happened in the first 20 laps. If you want to watch the fun, really competitive cars duke it out, the first 20 laps were where it all went down. Verstappen held Piastri off for quite a while. I think the engineer came over. What's his engineer's name? I don't know off the top of my head.
Gianpetro. Yeah, I'll have to look it up.
Well, he came over the phone pretty quickly and said, "Nice work, Max. Like, basically hold up Piastri as long as you can." Like, they knew what they were doing. Okay, let me ask you this. This is a quick reaction for you. I'll throw one out right now. You watched Piastri get by Verstappen under tough defense from Verstappen, and you watched Norris get past Verstappen. And we've watched Norris try or get past Verstappen more often than we've watched Piastri.
Mm-hmm.
Comparing both of them side by side just for this race, was it me or did Piastri just handle that a lot cleaner? Like pulled up, held behind, put on pressure. Eventually, he went out on the outside. Verstappen sent it down hard, locked up, and Piastri just slowed down and let him slide by and then passed him. Norris went off the track a couple times, like they were pushing each other off. Was that just me, or is there a little bit more between Norris and Verstappen there?
So what I think the difference could be here is Verstappen's choice of defending. So Verstappen, there's a little bit of bait and switch happening. There's a little bit of like, what am I going to do? Verstappen's driving through his mirrors, basically, right? He's not necessarily choosing the best line. He's not necessarily going, okay, I'm in clean air. I need to, like, he's got pressure on him. He can't get an advantage, clean air or not. So I think it depends on what each driver was doing behind Verstappen to see if they could bait him into moving in a defensive move somewhere other than, where it was bad for them for the car to be. I want to say that Piastri was a little bit more patient, a little bit more robotic, a little bit more like long game.
Right.
Like honestly, like this is the only thing I have to worry about to get into P1. So I'm okay for a couple laps.
I don't want to take any hits. I don't need to put any flat stops on my tires.
Exactly. Yeah. I don't need to ruin my tires this early on. So he just kind of like you said, kept persistent pressure. What I did notice is that he seemed to keep getting just, I don't want to say duped. It was just like he kept putting pressure on and he kept not getting the chance. Right. So where Lando came in, I think Lando was behind Max less time. So to me, yeah, he was a little bit wilder in his approach, but I think he got past him in fewer laps,
faster. Yeah.
So I think that's just a driver style thing, and I think it's probably like Max's tires were a little bit fresher when Piastri he was defending against Piastri, not as fresh when he was defending against Lando. Strategy may have changed from lap 1 to lap 5 to lap 10, and he was defending differently, or he was just defending less aggressively.
That's fair. And again, I'm only going off a couple races here where we have direct comparisons. From my perspective, over the last few races, especially, Norris is a little bit wilder, a little bit more inconsistent. He's going to put it on pole, and then he's going to lose 4 spaces at the beginning of the race, or start in second place. Verstappen sends him wide. He complains about it, but hey, you're still in 6th. You still have a ton of work to make up. You just lost first place because of that. Mm-hmm. Those little mistakes, they're more fun to watch. I mean, everybody kind of wants to see Verstappen and Norris locking up and going around curves crazy, but Piastri's got first because he methodically passed the guy and then locked in.
Yeah, I mean,
first.
If you're Lando Norris and you get booped turn 2, maybe there's some more emotion to it than there is with Piastri. I mean, Piastri is getting noted right now by pundits and general commentators, people like us.
Right.
Sorry,
right.
We are the best podcast in America.
We are.
We're the one.
We are the voice of F1 in America.
So there are people kind of saying like Piastri is remarkably lacking in emotion when he is in the car. When he is visor down, he gets it. He doesn't get it. You're not hearing him on the radio exclaiming or grunting or anything like that. I mean, for him to show a little bit of emotion and for him to kind of like let his hair down a little bit at the end of this race was kind of a new thing,
Yeah, he's an interesting character. At some point, maybe we should just take guesses. I'm not trying to. We don't want to make fun of these guys, but take guesses about what all these guys do the minute they're done racing for the day. My guess would be Piastri just heads in and locks right into whatever his favorite video game is, and is like racing. What? I'll be back when I'm back, but I'm not thinking about that right now. He just does not. He does not seem flappable. He is unflappable. Can you say not flappable, or does it have to be unflappable?
I think one can not be flappable. Can be not flappable. Sure,
he's unflapped. We'll leave that one alone. All right,
unflapped.
Another big note for the race. A big welcome back officially to the smooth operator Carlos Sainz.
So earlier you were saying like, oh, all the interesting racing was done early in the race. I mean, I agree. Like watching the battle between Verstappen and Piastri, that was like pinnacle racing right there. That was like,
sure,
every turn,
Right.
But I will say I enjoyed the battle between Sainz and a Williams and both Ferraris, a 7-time world champion and a multiple-time, podium and race winner. Losing, like literally on there, getting passed by a Williams. One of them on the same compound, one of them on a softer compound. By Williams
in a solid 5th and not done chasing 4th in the Constructors' Championship.
Yeah.
I think it's officially time to say Williams is back. And Carlos Sainz is back. It was great to just see him racing again. I kind of lost track for a while there. Lap 30, 31, right in that time frame. The back and forth, it was both Albon passing Leclerc and then Sainz passing Antonelli. I think in the same lap. I think that was lap 31. So I jokingly say the lap was over by 30. I think I meant 31. But realistically, I think I had a note. Sainz was playing bumper cars with, I think, Hamilton all the way to the line.
Yeah,
was he trying to get past all the way to the line?
I would say it was Hamilton that he kind of got up under and stayed up under for a minute. I would say Sainz got dealt a really bad hand this race. First of all, there was a little bit of miscommunication. He got ahead of Albon right out of the race start. Albon had a mistake. I don't know if it was clutch or it's just slow start or what. But Sainz very much got the position on the start. And then once they're through those first few turns, then it's kind of time for team orders or strategy to kick in, right? Once you're not kind of in that, the dust hasn't settled yet. And before they got the call, before they got the radio call, Sainz got the call first of like, hey, this is strategy, think about this, whatever. Albon was told, stay within a second of Sainz, and Sainz is going to let you stay within a second because they said a water pressure issue. I guess that's like a cooling system thing. Excuse me.
Right.
But before they said, all right, let's hold this position, Albon with DRS was still in the attack and got around Sainz. So Sainz was kind of like, this is before, kind of between the end of the race and media time. Sainz was kind of told like, hey, this is what happened. But before then, I don't know if you heard this at the end of the race, he kind of had a not so happy radio call at the end of the race, and James Vowles himself jumped in and was like, hey, understood, we got to, this is something we're going to figure out, because there was just a slow communication. He sort of got the raw end of the deal on team strategy this race. Double down, or double whammy here. Virtual safety car. He gets past both Ferraris, and then there's a virtual safety car, and now there's a virtual safety car start with both Ferraris behind him.
Both Ferraris behind him with fresh tires.
With fresh tires. And not the most convenient place for the safety car to go off for Sainz. They were right behind him. For some reason, his delta or his, in a virtual safety car, it's not about going a certain speed. It's about keeping a certain distance from the car in front of you, or keeping a certain lap time number of seconds higher than average or something like that. So Sainz couldn't speed up at this point. But for some reason, the Ferraris could. They could be right behind him. So when the lights went green, they were basically just primed and ready to go. And Hamilton almost got around both of the cars, but because Sainz was at such a disadvantage, he got passed by both Ferraris right at the virtual safety car start. Yeah. So I think a little bit better strategy on the front end, or a little bit better execution of that strategy for Sainz keeps him out of that situation with the bad virtual safety car, and he's got a huge race.
Yeah. I mean, it was a big race as it was, but it was 7-8-9, Leclerc, Hamilton, Sainz. So, big point shift if he's 2 spaces up from there. Albon with a big win, a big spot, number 5 or 5th place for Albon, 10 points there. It still was a ton of good racing. I feel like the Williams had nearly half of the good activity for this race. Once, like you said, once you get past Norris, Verstappen, and Piastri, and they're fighting it out at the front, it was really Albon and Sainz kind of carving up the midfield. That was the most fun to watch.
Yeah.
Well, I say the most fun to watch. That and Hamilton getting increasingly frustrated as Ferrari could not figure out which of their cars they wanted to go first.
Man, that was some spicy radio chatter right there.
You ever had an argument with kids where you're like, guys, this is just an Oreo. You don't have to fight this hard over it. This one felt like that. I was like, guys, this is just 7th place.
Right.
That big of a deal. I know they were trying to hunt down Antonelli, but
neither of them really could. I mean, I get Hamilton's point. Hey, I've earned my team strategy capital here. Let me cash it in, or team strategy equity, whatever you want to call it. Mm-hmm. Let me cash some in here. The shoe's on the other foot. What are we doing here? So they finally did it. You heard a little bit of chatter from Leclerc going, "Oh, it's not a great spot now. I got to wait for it to be a good spot." And then they swapped it right back around, because I think by the time it all was said and done, it just, the tires were in a different stage, or, something was just different. So I sort of feel bad for Hamilton in this case, to be honest.
Yeah. What it felt like was neither of those cars I don't think either of those cars were going to catch Antonelli. They were both going to have a struggle either way, and they were both evenly matched. So they were only going to be fighting each other for the rest of that race. And that's exactly what happened. Yeah, Hamilton telling Leclerc to move. His tires are getting hot. Leclerc telling him exactly the same thing. My tires are shot. Tell him to move. And then Sainz coming up behind Hamilton, and Hamilton with maybe the snark. I think he's got the sassiest radio message of the season now with you. I love when they said it, they said Sainz 1.4 behind. And I was like, he's going to get mad about that, because thank you for telling me that a competitor is right behind me now that you made me switch places.
Right.
And then his comment, you want me to let him pass as well?
You want me to let him pass too? Yeah.
Man.
So thank you, Lewis Hamilton. Even though you're not winning a race this weekend, you've given us something great to watch.
Oh, so much. Just in general, I found myself asking, why do we not mic up every professional athlete? We don't have to play it all. We probably shouldn't play most of it. But man, it just leads to some really good stuff. Every now and then they mic up another professional athlete, and it always makes for, YouTube gold. Well, it was a good race. Honestly, a lot of activity right at the beginning. A lot of fun radio after that. Excited to see the smooth operator back in operation. I think, he gets a better race.
For a while there, I thought he had grown his appendix back or something, but turns out still gone. Still good at racing.
He does not need that appendix. Yeah. He needs his Ferrari spot back. But that's kind of it for there. Hey, actually, while we're on the topic of Hamilton, I've got a quick reaction for you. And this one actually comes in from a listener. So we always ask for people to leave comments. Please share your comments. take some time to throw some stuff out there. We actually had a listener send us a request. We had him send it in on a recording. So I've got, Daniel, a quick reaction for you, courtesy of a listener.
Let's
There you
go.
Hey, Critical Lapper here, longtime listener, first-time caller. Love the show. Have a question for you. Why does Lewis Hamilton seem to be able to have the pace to win and be on the podium in a sprint race, but seems to really struggle when it comes to the Grand Prix? Would love your thoughts. I'll listen off air.
Okay. I love that he posed it like we're a radio show. Like long-time listener.
First-time caller.
Listen
Love
off
that.
air. Yeah,
Love
we
that.
are not live. For those of you who are hoping we were live, we're not. But we will be one day. Daniel, what's your reaction to that? Why is Hamilton so successful in sprints?
It's an excellent question. I mean, it's a good outside looking in. If you just check out the stats, like what's going on, you've got a 7-time world champion and what's a legacy, amazing, typically should be good car, very competitive, should be very competitive every year. So you see kind of this like fits and starts, and you isolate it to, okay, he's good in the sprints, but not in the GP. Well, the formats are obviously different. You know, your strategy. Number one in the sprints, you're going about half as many laps. You're not planning on any pit stops. You're less fuel in the car. You're not quite qualifying light, but you're obviously not full GP heavy.
Right.
So there's a lot of different things happening. There's a lot of just, I don't know. You're not really going to get a strategy built around a setup like that, because the equivalent in a GP would be about halfway through the race, and if everyone can start on perfectly fresh tires about halfway through the race, then you might see a similar strategy or similar cars being competitive in that second half of the race. But for Hamilton specifically, early on, China was second race of the year, third.
The second
race of the year.
Yep.
There's, he not only did he qualify on pole for the sprint, he won the race. Am I correct in saying that? Did I write that down
correct.
correctly?
His best finishes of the year have been the sprint race in China first, and the sprint race in Miami third.
Yeah. So in China, his biggest challenger was Verstappen. Verstappen was behind him for most of the race. No pit stops in that race, unlike the sprint race here in Miami this weekend. But Verstappen was not quite the car wasn't in good enough form, and he was defending against Piastri behind him. So Hamilton sort of had the benefit of clean air, and the person who should have been challenging him was also getting challenged and was not really being offensive because he was having to be defensive. The other thing is, not only the Red Bull was not really kind of developed and in best form, the drivers, the other cars, the other teams were still kind of getting their feet under them. So Hamilton, showing his 7-time world champion prowess, got his feet under him really quickly in that
left.
Ferrari. Yeah. And got out of there. But he did relatively well in that sprint with that setup, which favored that Ferrari, right?
Yeah, so he had a good option, and so China was a good one for him. He had some defense in the part of Verstappen holding off Piastri. He still pulled out a good 7-second gap there at the win.
Right.
But I think that makes sense. That the sprint race is just like you said; it's a totally different format. You get fresh tires right off the bat. You don't have to worry about pit stop strategy. No offense to Ferrari, pit stop strategy has not been their forte. I say that, and they pit stopped him perfect. They pit stopped Hamilton perfectly.
Well,
in the sprint race.
Point number 2, you're exactly right. Point number 2, that team strategy is what got him on the podium in Miami in the sprint race. Without him being the first one to pit, no way he gets on the podium. And even in the after the race, kind of in between sprint and GP, he said that was all strategy. That is not pace. We don't have the pace in the car. He even went as far as to say, every time I go out in this car, it's different. So even though he got his feet under him in the early part of the China weekend, he's still not really comfortable with the car. He still doesn't trust it. He still doesn't feel like he can. I mean, what are you building on? If the car is different every weekend or different even every time you go out within the same weekend, how do you get those incremental gains that you need to evolve? So I would say,
kind of speaks to why you have that inconsistency.
Oh yeah,
right. Lando Norris, Oscar Piastri, doing just fine in both sprint and Grand Prix formats.
Right,
Max Verstappen just fine in both formats. Frankly, Mercedes always right there in the 3, 4, 5, 6 range.
Yeah.
Lewis Hamilton, 1st and 3rd in your sprint races.
Yeah.
7th, 8th, 9th in your Grand Prix.
And if you remember, Ferrari was one of those teams to say, oh, no, we know that the regs are changing next year, but the car is very different this year. We've made all these improvements. We've done all this development. It's 99% a different car entirely. And we talked about a little bit here. What that means, who knows? But, they're trying really hard to be competitive this year, but that also comes with its downsides.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a great question, and I'm glad somebody asked it. I have a similar question. Maybe we'll tackle this next time around. That might be answered the same way. So I'll ask the question next time, and we'll get into it about Verstappen and his qualifying. There's something about Verstappen in an ultralight car that has 8 ounces of fuel or whatever it is they put in it for qualifying, and his "I'd rather die than not get pole position" attitude that yields magic. And then this year, at least, he's consistently not able to hold his own in the race. But the damage is oftentimes done in qualifying, and he can hold that 3rd, 4th, 5th spot with no problem.
Yep.
So, hey, the only thing we got to talk, I think that kind of wraps up the Miami Grand Prix weekend. Is there anything else you wanted to cover before we settle in on a good nickname? Because I do think we need to lock in a nickname this time around.
Yeah, let's lock in a nickname. We can jump to that. Plenty to talk about. Plenty more to talk about that we haven't covered, guys. Really great weekend. Lots of good stuff to see. If you haven't checked out all of the events, SQ, Sprint, Q, Qualies, whatever you want to call them here, and Grand Prix, really good weekend. I didn't really, speaking of the track here, I wasn't super kind about it. I said the track doesn't really get me excited. I stand corrected here. Tons of overtaking, tons to watch, and you may have heard, Miami is confirmed on the calendar all the way through 2041 now.
I did not hear 2041. Who makes plans to 2041? Like graduates born this year make plans through 2041. Wow. Okay. Well, cool. That is good news. I actually did think it was really fun race weekend. You were kind of down on Miami on the track, to be honest.
Yeah. So what are we going to call this thing? Let's hear it.
Well, you had suggested one. I think you had the gator go around, because it does look like an alligator no matter how you look at it if you flip it around. I had thrown out vice president of circuits just for VP, the vice city. I don't know. But I also had I had a brainstorm when they kept announcing it. It's the Miami Grand Prix at the Hard Rock Stadium. I was like, why don't we call this the Hard Croc Stadium? Because it looks like a crocodile. So hard Croc Stadium circuit.
I love that. I love that.
Or gator go around. I'll tell you what, we're going to throw that one out again. I feel comfortable going with a gator or croc, given the shape
gator
of
or
the
croc.
track.
Gator. I mean, listen,
and
there might
in Florida.
There might be more crocs in Florida than actual alligators. If you think about all the terrible taste that Florida men have in fashion, there's 2 crocs for every Florida man. I don't know if there's 2 alligators for every Florida man.
There's 2 crocs for every Florida man. That is the quote of the day. Wow. Listen, Florida guys, I'm going to stand up for you and your track. It's a great track, and your Crocs are a great choice. Yeah.
So the Hard Croc Stadium circuit. What do you think the fans are going to call this? Let's hear it. We want to hear from you, everybody. We want we want recordings. We want comments. We want thumbs up, thumbs down.
Send them in.
Send them in. Give us something better than the Hard Croc Stadium. I dare you.
Send in your radio messages for the Critical Lap, and post a comment. Let us know. At least let us know. Do you prefer a gator go around, or the Hard Croc Stadium, or the Hard Croc Circuit? Your call. All right. Well, that's it. Thanks again to our listener, especially our listener who sent in the question. Really appreciate the audio. That's fantastic.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Makes our job easy. So thanks a lot for that. And as we wrap up here, just as a reminder, if you're loving the Critical Lap content, please subscribe, like, comment, share with a friend. Make sure you're geared up and ready. 13 days from today on my calendar is the next Grand Prix. And we are, where are we, Daniel? We're in Italy.
Yeah.
We're at Imola.
Emilia Romagna?
Imola.
Romagna? Romana.
I think that's right. And for the new listeners out there, listen, it's okay. It's all right to just like learn as you go. This is not Monza. This is the other Italian Grand Prix.
This is not
I'm
the
not
Temple
sure
of
why
Speed.
Monza gets all the attention except for the Temple of Speed thing, but
yeah.
There'll be plenty of Ferrari fans out there, probably wearing blue and white. And on that note, thanks again to our legendary pit wall producer, the legendary Chris P.
Chris P. Thank you very much.
Thanks again. And we'll see you all next time on next episode of Critical Lap.
Later.